Hey everyone, get ready to dig deep, no pun intended, into the world of no-dig gardening. We're diving into a transcript from a garden tour video. It's late August when this was filmed, so it's going to be packed with cool tips.
Definitely a great time of year to be looking at a garden.
I know. And we'll get to see some unexpected things, like chicory. Have you ever grown chicory?
I have not.
Me neither. There's also asparagus grown from seed. Plus, a composting system that uses 3 pallets.
Sounds efficient.
Very much so, yeah. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's just set the stage a bit.
Okay, sounds good.
This garden's in a region that had a pretty ideal summer for growth. Wet and warm, so everything's just exploding.
Ah, that makes sense.
And get this, almost all the plants we're going to be looking at, they're actually second plantings. So that already gives you a sense of how quickly things grow with no dig.
That's pretty impressive.
Definitely.
Ah.
And you know me, I love a good side-by-side comparison. And this gardener is in it for the long haul.
Oh, tell me more about this.
We've got a no-dig bed and a traditionally dug bed right next to each other.
Yeah.
And they've been running this trial for 11 years.
Wow. 11 years.
I know, right?
So what have they seen over that time?
Well, the no-dig bed is consistently producing about 12% more food. Isn't that crazy?
That is a noticeable difference for sure.
Makes you wonder what's happening under the surface in that no-dig bed.
It does.
Is it the soil structure? The microbial life? Better nutrient retention?
Lots of questions to explore.
You betcha. I love a good garden mystery, as you know.
Oh, I know you do.
But let's not get too deep into the soil just yet. First, we got to talk about that chicory.
Okay, yeah, the chicory.
Now, I'll admit, I don't know much about chicory. What do you know about it?
Not a ton, to be honest.
Well, the gardener describes these chicory plants with, like, kind of normal-looking outer leaves.
Okay.
But then when you peel those back, there's a beautiful red heart inside.
Whoa, a red heart.
Yeah. Doesn't that sound beautiful?
That does sound pretty striking.
And it's not just pretty, apparently, that red heart. It gets this unique bittersweet flavor through a process called blanching. Do you know much about blanching?
So I've heard the term, but I'm not exactly sure what it means.
Me neither.
Help me out here.
Yeah, so from what I gather, blanching is basically reducing the amount of light that gets to the growing chicory heart.
Okay.
It can be something as simple as, like, tying the outer leaves together,
Mm-hmm.
or covering the plants with some shade cloth, something to block out some of that sun.
Gotcha.
And this does a couple of things. First, it slows down chlorophyll production, which gives you that paler color, that reddish hue. And then it also creates that more delicate flavor.
Very interesting.
So it's not just about the simplicity of no dig, right?
Right.
It's like it opens up this whole world of unique growing techniques and flavors too.
I like that, yeah.
And of course, timing is key. The gardener mentions that late August, it's the perfect time to be sowing that chicory for a fall harvest.
That makes sense.
It's all about season-specific planting strategies.
Absolutely, you got to work with what you got.
Exactly. So we've got efficient yields, interesting vegetables, and precise timing. What else could this no-dig garden possibly have in store for us?
Who knows? But I'm excited to find out.
Me too. Well, next up, the gardener takes us inside the greenhouse.
Ooh, a greenhouse.
There's a little bit of leftover pak choi and some mustard greens in there. But what really catches the eye is the spinach.
What about the spinach?
Well, they're trialing all these different varieties.
Okay.
Some are doing great and some not so much. And the interesting thing is, the ones that are doing the best, they're actually grown from saved seeds.
Interesting.
Yeah. As opposed to, like, the store-bought seeds.
You know, that makes me think about the whole concept of seed saving and whether there's something about those saved seeds being better adapted to this specific environment.
Right. Or maybe the no-dig approach itself favors those locally adapted varieties.
That's a fascinating question.
It really is. Like, what's the connection there?
It does make you think about gardening as an ongoing experiment.
Oh, I love that.
Very
It's
casual.
not just about following a recipe. It's about
Yeah,
observing, adapting, discovering.
exactly.
Okay, so we've checked out the greenhouse, learned about blanching chicory, and we're starting to wonder about the power of saved seeds. Where to next on this no-dig journey?
What's next?
Let's step back outside. The gardener has a timely tip for us. It's late August, remember. So this is the perfect time to be planting spring onions. But not just any planting. They use this technique called multi-sowing.
Multi-sowing.
Have you heard of that?
I can't say that I have.
It basically involves sowing multiple spring onion seeds per cell in your seed tray.
Okay.
And this is so you get this more robust plant
Yeah,
with a bigger root system.
I see.
And it makes them ready to be transplanted directly into the bed.
Makes sense. Give them a little head start.
Exactly. Especially since it's a fall planting. It's like they have a little community to support each other from day one.
Yeah, like a little onion team.
Exactly. And speaking of surprising starts, this gardener is experimenting with asparagus grown from seed. Now, I always thought you grew asparagus from crowns, those established root systems.
Yeah.
But they decided to try something different.
So how'd it go?
Well, even though the seeds were sown a bit later than usual, the seedlings still developed strong, healthy roots.
Wow.
It's amazing, right? Like plants are so adaptable.
They really are. It's incredible.
So I'm starting to think this gardener's a bit of a rebel, challenging those conventional gardening norms.
A little bit, yeah.
But hey, rules are made to be broken, right?
Especially in the garden.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got delicate asparagus starts, but now get ready for something completely different. We're moving on to chili peppers.
Ooh, bring on the heat.
And not just any chili peppers. This one is called Bolivian Magic.
I love the name.
Me too. So picture this, a chili pepper. That starts out purple,
Okay.
then it turns orange,
Okay.
and then finally, when it's fully ripe, it's this vibrant red.
So it's a visual treat and tasty too, I bet.
Oh yeah, the gardener says it packs a serious punch. There's even a story about a chef using just 3 of these chilies to spice up a meal for 17 people.
Wow. Only 3.
I know, right? That's some serious heat.
Definitely adding that one to my list to try.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, so from fiery chilies, we're going to something a bit more mellow.
All right, what's next?
The gardener shows us their bell peppers. They're growing the aster variety.
Okay.
It's obviously a point of pride for them. But they also acknowledge that growing peppers, especially in their cooler climate, it can be a bit of a challenge.
I can relate to that. Peppers can be finicky.
Totally. So they definitely recommend a greenhouse to give those peppers a warmer environment to thrive.
I was going to say a greenhouse would probably help.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And they also have a great tip about supporting those long pepper branches.
Yeah?
Yep, because they get so heavy with all those peppers.
Right. They need some help.
Exactly. They actually show us how they've got theirs propped up with a little stake and some twine, and it makes a big difference. So I definitely filed that one away for when I grow peppers.
Good tip.
But before we move on to the next plant, let's just take a moment to appreciate the overall abundance of this no-dig garden.
Okay.
I mean, picture this, okay? Bright pops of color from French marigolds, rows of lettuce just begging to be harvested, and then young ruby chard already being picked.
It sounds beautiful.
Doesn't it? And then there's fennel that's recently been transplanted.
This is a very diverse garden.
It really is. But I'm curious, do all the crops thrive equally well in this no-dig system?
Yeah. Are there any plants that struggle?
Right. Well, remember those courgettes we talked about earlier?
The ones from the previous video?
Yeah, the ones that weren't doing so well. Seems like they're still struggling.
Even in a no-dig garden.
I know, right? Even in no-dig paradise, some plants need a little extra TLC.
Are you sure?
But on a happier note, the butternut squash are finally coming in.
Okay.
So patience is key, right?
Absolutely.
And they're also growing a couple of other squash varieties, Oregon Sweetmeat Homestead and Marina di Chioggia.
Those sound good.
They do. And this just goes to show that variety selection plays a big role in success,
I agree.
especially when you're talking about matching plants to your climate.
For sure.
Okay, ready for another unusual crop?
Hit me.
Have you ever grown tomatillos?
Tomatillos. I've heard of them, but never grown them.
Same here, but they sound pretty interesting. So tomatillos, they're not your typical tomato. They're actually part of the nightshade family,
Okay.
but their fruits are encased in these papery husks, and they have a tendency to drop to the ground when they're ripe.
Oh, I can see myself crawling around looking for them.
Right, it's like a treasure hunt in the garden.
I like that.
But you have to keep an eye out for them because they can get overripe and moldy pretty quickly, especially as the weather cools down.
Makes sense.
So again, timing is everything.
It always is with gardening.
And speaking of working with nature, the gardener shows us some beautiful aster flowers. They're called Lady Coral Blue, and they're grown from saved seeds. Seed saving.
Now, that's something I've been wanting to try more of.
Me too. It seems so empowering,
It does. Like
Yeah.
you're carrying on a tradition.
Right. And not just saving money on seeds,
Yeah.
but also preserving those varieties.
That's about biodiversity, isn't it?
Totally. And adapting plants to local conditions.
And having that connection to the past.
Right. Okay. Enough of the philosophical stuff. Let's get back to the nitty-gritty of no dig.
Sounds good to me.
The gardener takes us to a bed that's seen a lot of action. First, it had purple sprouting broccoli,
Okay.
then lettuce,
All right.
and now they're planting spinach.
So this is like succession planting in action.
Exactly. It's all about maximizing space and extending those harvests.
I love that.
And they make it look so easy.
Oh, how so?
So they cleared out the old lettuce plants. Then they just spread a fresh layer of compost over the bed. No digging at all. And then they just tucked in these little spinach seedlings.
That's it.
That's it.
No tilling or anything.
Nope. And here's the key principle of no dig. Ready for this?
I'm ready.
Compost feeds the soil, which in turn feeds the plants.
It's so simple, but it makes so much sense.
Right. It's about that interconnectedness of the garden ecosystem.
Exactly. You're creating this cycle of life and growth.
A virtuous cycle. I like that. But I have to admit, I'm still a little skeptical about the whole no digging thing. Like, doesn't the soil get compacted over time?
That's a common question for sure.
Right.
But here's the thing. When you're constantly adding compost and you've got those earthworms doing their thing, it actually improves the soil structure.
Really?
Yeah.
You're telling me the worms are doing all the work?
In a way, yes. They create all these air pockets and channels,
That's amazing.
which allows for good drainage and root penetration.
So it's like the soil is constantly being aerated and revitalized from within.
Precisely. No digging required.
Okay, you're winning me over here.
I'm glad.
And speaking of maximizing space, the gardener uses a technique called interplanting.
Interplanting.
Have you heard of this one?
I haven't. Fill me in.
So basically, it's a way to utilize the space between slower growing plants or plants that are, nearing the end of their cycle.
Okay.
So they gave the example of chervil.
Oh, I love chervil.
Me too. Tucked between lettuce plants.
That's a great idea.
Right. So the lettuce will be done in a few weeks. And then the chervil will have all that space to grow in the fall.
It's like a double harvest from the same space.
Exactly.
I'm learning so much from this gardener.
Me too. Okay, so we've got succession planting, interplanting, and compost galore. What other no-dig secrets are we going to uncover?
Oh, I can't wait to find out.
Let's see. Oh, remember those borlotti beans we saw earlier?
The ones that look so healthy.
Yeah. Their leaves are starting to turn yellow.
That's a good sign, right?
It is. It means they're maturing,
Yeah.
and they'll be ready for harvest as dry pods in about a month.
Very nice.
It's amazing how much you can grow in a garden. It's like your own personal grocery store.
It really is.
But speaking of all this abundance, I got to ask about composting.
Yeah. Composting is key.
It seems like it's at the heart of no-dig gardening.
Absolutely.
So how does this gardener handle composting?
Well, they have a pretty unique system, a 3-pallet setup.
3 pallets.
3 pallets.
That's what we're going to dive into next time.
Ooh, can't wait.
This composting system, it's the fuel that drives this whole no-dig operation.
I'm ready to learn all about it.
Me too. So, until next time, everyone, keep those green thumbs busy and those minds open.
We'll see you in part 2.
Okay, so last time we were geeking out about that amazing 12% yield increase in the no-dig bed.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
It really is. But it made me think, what's the science behind it,
Right. What's going on beneath the surface to make that happen?
Exactly. I mean, I understand the basics of adding compost on top, but what's the magic happening down below?
Well, think about it this way. When you dig or till the soil, you're basically disrupting a really complex ecosystem.
Okay.
It's like shaking up a snow globe.
Everything gets messed up.
Exactly. You're breaking up those networks of fungi, displacing earthworms, exposing microbes to sunlight.
Right. It's like starting from scratch almost.
In a way, yeah.
So with no dig, you're just leaving that underground world alone
Basically, you're letting it do its thing.
and just feeding it from above with that compost.
It's like a buffet for the soil food web.
I like that. So all those earthworms and fungi and microbes, they're essentially creating this perfect environment for plants to thrive.
They're doing all the hard work, yeah.
It's like having a whole team of tiny gardeners working for you.
That's a great way to put it.
And by leaving the soil undisturbed, you're also giving those organisms a more stable environment to live in, right?
Exactly. They can establish deeper networks, improve aeration and drainage.
It's win-win for everyone.
Absolutely.
And did you know that no dig can also help with weed suppression?
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, when you dig the soil, you're bringing all those weed seeds to the surface, giving them a chance to germinate.
Right.
But with no dig, they stay buried.
Out of sight, out of mind.
And hopefully out of the garden.
Exactly.
Fewer weeds, Andy, less digging? I'm sold.
There are a lot of benefits to no dig, that's for sure.
So are there any downsides?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is getting enough organic matter, especially compost, to build up those top layers.
That makes sense. It takes a lot of compost to make this work.
It does. But once you get that system established, it becomes more self-sustaining over time.
So it's a long-term investment.
Definitely an investment, but worth it.
What about pests and diseases? Are no-dig gardens more prone to those problems?
Not necessarily. In fact, it's quite the opposite. A healthy soil ecosystem full of beneficial organisms can actually suppress pests and diseases.
How does that work?
Think of it like a diverse ecosystem. You have a balance of predators and prey, good fungi and bacteria that keep the bad guys in check.
So it's all about biodiversity above ground and below ground.
Exactly.
But you still need to be vigilant, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can't just ignore your plants.
Right.
You still need to keep an eye out for problems and take action if you see something.
Early intervention is key.
It always is.
And it's a good reminder that even in a no-dig garden,
Yeah.
things don't always go perfectly.
Yeah, like those courgettes we were talking about.
Poor courgettes.
Even in no-dig paradise, there are challenges.
Totally. Gardening is a humbling experience.
It is. There will be successes and failures. You just got to roll with it.
Exactly. That's what makes it so exciting.
Exactly. It's all about learning and adapting.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Well said.
So I'm really excited to learn more about this gardener's composting system, especially that 3-pallet setup we talked about.
Yes. It sounds very efficient.
Because composting is the fuel that powers this whole no-dig garden, right?
Absolutely. It's like the heart of the operation.
So let's dive in and see what makes it tick. Okay, ready to uncover the secrets of this 3-pallet composting system.
Let's do it.
I'm imagining something super elaborate with all sorts of bells and whistles.
Oh, no, it's actually quite simple.
Real?
It's all about efficiency.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Walk me through it.
So you've got your 3 pallets, right?
Right, side by side.
The first one, that's where all the fresh stuff goes.
Like what kind of stuff?
Kitchen scraps, garden waste, grass clippings. They even use aged wood chips.
So that's like the starting point for the compost.
Exactly.
But it doesn't just sit there and rot, does it?
Nope. This is where the magic happens. They actually move the decomposing material from one pallet to the next.
Oh.
So after a few weeks on pallet 1, that partially decomposed stuff gets shifted over to pallet 2.
Okay, so it's like a staged system.
Exactly.
Each pallet is different phase of the composting process.
You got it.
But why move it around?
Well, it aerates the compost pile, which is super important for those microbes that are doing all the work. It also makes sure the material is mixed well.
So it breaks down evenly.
Exactly.
Okay, so pallet 1 is for the fresh stuff. Pallet 2 is for the partially decomposed stuff. What about pallet 3?
Pallet 3, that's where the finished compost ends up.
Ready to go on the garden beds.
Black gold.
It really is. I mean, composting is like the heart of no-dig, isn't it?
Absolutely. You're turning waste into a valuable resource.
It fuels the whole system.
Exactly.
Now, the gardener mentioned something about using a mix of green and brown materials.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
What's the deal with that?
Well, green materials, like kitchen scraps, are high in nitrogen,
Okay.
and brown materials, like those wood chips, are high in carbon.
Right, the carbon to nitrogen ratio.
Exactly.
I've heard that term thrown around, but I'm not really sure what it means.
Well, that ratio is super important for the microbes. They
Mhm.
need a good balance of carbon and nitrogen to do their job,
Just
breaking
keep-
down all that organic matter. Ideally, you want a ratio of about 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen.
And that creates a hot compost pile.
Yes. And that heat helps kill off weed seeds and pathogens.
So you're adding healthy compost to your garden.
Exactly.
Okay, this is making a lot more sense now. I'm starting to see composting as like an art form.
It is.
You're working with nature, you know?
It's a dance.
You said it. But let's get back to the garden tour. What else caught your eye?
Let me think. Ah, that sunflower.
The tall orange sunflower.
That's the one.
It was huge EE.
It was.
The gardener actually talked about a misconception about sunflowers.
Whoa, what about
People think they're a little apathic.
allelopathic?
Yeah, and it means they release chemicals that inhibit the growth of other plants.
Like they're poisoning their neighbors.
Right.
But that's not actually true.
Really?
It's more about their water consumption.
Oh, okay.
Sunflowers are thirsty plants,
So they just drink up all the water,
pretty much.
and that makes it hard for other plants to thrive.
Especially in dry conditions, yeah.
It's a good reminder that even in a no-dig system, plants are still competing for resources.
That's a great point.
Okay, so we've got a massive sunflower, a super efficient composting system. What else?
Oh, they showed us some newly planted turnips.
Tokyo cross turnips.
Yep. And they're supposed to be sweeter than the traditional Japanese turnips.
Ooh, interesting.
And they had a mesh cover over them.
To protect them from pests.
Those pesky critters.
They're always a challenge.
That's for sure.
It's all about having multiple strategies.
Yeah,
That's right.
you got it.
Okay, moving on. The gardener also compared those turnips to the onions that had gone to seed earlier. It just shows how different plants have different rhythms,
That's true. They all have their own timelines.
and they respond differently to the environment.
Definitely.
And we can't forget that amazing asparagus bed. 11 years old.
Can you believe it?
I know, that's the beauty of no dig.
It's sustainable, long-lasting.
You're building something for the future.
Absolutely.
And even with all those years of experience, this gardener is still experimenting.
Oh, yeah. They showed us their celeriac trial.
They're trying to figure out if leaving the leaves on causes disease problems.
Fascinating.
It's inspiring,
It is.
Always learning, always asking questions. That's what gardening is all about.
Totally agree.
So as we wrap up this no-dig deep dive, what are your final thoughts?
I'm just so impressed by this garden. The diversity, the abundance, the ingenuity.
Me too.
It really shows what's possible with a no-dig.
And not just the techniques, but the mindset too, right?
Exactly. It's about being curious, creative, and respectful of nature.
Well said. To everyone listening, we encourage you to explore the world of no-dig gardening. Ask questions, experiment, have fun.
Happy gardening!
And until next time, keep on digging deep.